Greetings, everyone. I thought I'd make a video today to celebrate the prose of Rick Harsch. So you may know Rick from Corona Samizdat Press. You may have seen or heard his name around Bookstagram. I'm currently reading The Assassination of Olof Palme, one of his many excellent novels. I shouldn't say that quite yet. I've only read a couple of Rick's, but I'm assuming they're all really good. I thought I'd do a reading from an early part of the book I'm reading. Rick's got he's an amazing writer. He is able to he capture his own distinctive, harsh style, I must say. Really smart stuff, and it's got a musical component to it also. He really has fun with words, and it's quite fun to read aloud. So I thought I would do that here today. So it's kind of another thing I appreciate about The Assassination of Olof Palme. I've also read his Driftless trilogy, which is a little bit more straightforward. But in this one, he does a really neat kind of storytelling device that serves as a frame narrative where he's telling the story and he's kind of tag teaming it with his alter ego. So it's another Rick Harsch is how I understand it. So it's really excellent. So a little bit of context. This section is where one of these Rick narrators talks about this part being autobiographical. So I think we're left to wonder if these sort of things happened to Rick himself. Who knows? But anyway, I plan on getting the second Olof Palme book from Rick here as I place my fourth Corona Samizdat order, I want to say. Looking forward to that. So you should all check out Rick's work. I've also read what I believe is his best that I've read is The Manifold Destiny of Eddie Vegas. If you haven't got that book, highly recommend. So I hope you enjoy my reading from Olof Palme. Cheers, everyone. So the autobiographical then. I just returned from a walk with Sultan Suleiman, the remaining family dog. I get the night walk. The two of us have been estranged of late, the result of a sort of evolution of my thoughts about him. What he means to me, what he means when he behaves as he does, in his dutiful, little varying quotidian, he being in his mix more shepherd than terrier, than his spaniel mother, than that fourth of him that made his bastard father a threesome of Istrian debauchery. So Urosh, the dog expert, told me. Suleiman has at least 4 breeds a mingle in him, though it did not require a Urosh to spot the predominance of shepherd. It's that which explains what I would have until recently called his personality, and find more and more strikes me as something less than that, something more mice in a maze about him, his fundamental decency and his slavish face-licking. Say a pack of us, visitors new to him, the family, make us 7 in toto, are returning home, walking up the 4 flights of stairs. Suleiman accounts for one and all rushing to the first step, making sure it seems the first of us gets the idea, as if he were directing the climb. And, yes, indeed, should one new-found lamb pause to correct the behavior of a shoe, to slap at a brat, Suleiman will pause, let part of the pack pass until movement is regenerated, problem solved, no doubt in his mind due to his diligence, whence he will rush back to the lead. At the door he will enter, yet remain in the vestibule until all are accounted for. The home life is similarly shepherded, and of course in his mind or what passes for it, or what genetically speaking owns his soul, Suleiman has been responsible for the orderly and endured day after day. He owes to me, would he but acknowledge it, what variety our nebulous needies afford. For I am unstable, I vary, I sleep poorly, I go down, I get up. All others operate according to plans that he must account for. He must remain all afternoon on the bed of B until B returns, else he is not doing his duty. Yet when she returns and he has wildly greeted her, mad barking, face slavering, etc., he soon returns to that room to the bed of A, who will be back a bit later. Suffice to say in shortcuts that my wife is stable, sleeps quite early, nods off rapidly, indwells deeply, leaving me to conquer the night, or at least the time that gives it its name. Suleiman not being without his own needs, I take him out when all others sleep. Take him out without a leash, in violation of statute. Fuck it, I shan't look it up. The fine, though, is out of proportion to the offense. On this point, I insist. Here is Suleiman's one chance to dash about freely, if only he would. I mentioned estrangement. I mentioned we'd just returned from a walk. It was what, rather unfortunately, has become our standard walk. See, he does not run freely, though he does appreciate a good long walk. The problem is he stops too often, and I spend far too much of a long walk waiting for him to sniff leaves and branches, signaling his departure from these particulars of verdure with a leg lift and a douse of pee. To be fair, early in the walk they are jets of pee-pee, so that, at best, I end up having taken the air rather than exercised. I could go on about his deteriorating eyesight and the effect that has, but the point is we generally stick to our standard walk down the overly wide, considering the scarcity of feet trafficking it, sidewalk before our building, which is bounded by 3 long oval islands of greenery too oft overhauled by the minions of the mayor. This is the Mediterranean. Let it grow, let it grow, let it grow. Now utterly palmless, which is where he sniffs and pisses, and eventually, leading up to the symphonic dumping up inwardly solids with a surprisingly nimble dance of the blind dog. At the end of the fat sidewalk we reach the wall, or what was the wall pub, now Café d'Istra, so named as it is on the corner where city walls once wedged. There we cross the street to another wide sidewalk, more aptly obese, for it borders the sea and contains the irregular passeggiata, an Italian custom retained in this city, in which 90% of the Italians remain so elsewhere, replaced by Slovenes, Croats, Serbs, Northern Greeks or Macedons, Bosniaks, and Albanians, all in great number, and perhaps representatives of a couple dozen more nations, including that of Elliot Abrams and other worthies who shall be prancing about these pages like no good nicks do when the guillotine has been put away and the prisons serve sorbet. Returning, we turn left, and on our immediate left is a strip of more and different struggling greenery, this but 2 meters wide, not an island of flora, yet neither a hedge, given the struggles of whatever swampage species officialdom is experimenting with. Still, just as good a place for Suleiman to sniff, lick, douse, dance, and crap. We move on, past the street crossing back to our building, to the end of another block, cross back over there, and he is thus afforded yet one more island of hound smells to inspect. Last night, though, having had these troubles regarding our relationship that I have alluded to, I decided to talk it through with him, and kept up a sort of running account of how his specific behaviors affected me, how, for one instance, his stops and starts prevented me from achieving a proper, healthful walk. By the time we were 3/4 home, and he had cleansed his bowels, was dawdling near some hideous skeletal brownery that was probably dying from fear of what it saw happen to the palms and oleander of yore across the street, I finally told him quite simply that as he was an animate creature, it was rather unfortunate that I would be better off with a potted plant for a pet. Now an intimate of mine, say Bob, and ask no more of him here, would jump to the conclusion that I am still miffed about the incident a few nights before, when I awoke to the utter confusion with which a deep and badly needed sleep yields to a dog fucking the head so troubled already. I didn't strike him. Rather, I rose calmly and made my way to the balcony and lit a smoke and let the black, very black night lure my mind to something like a status quo, after which I read a bit and returned to the bed just when a low rumble of thunder gargled the skies and Suleiman began the heavy breathing that precedes his thunderstorm panic, and I had the answer I was, in truth, not looking for. In fact, it was Bob to whom I had already expressed my growing disillusion with the pet just days before. I had gone to bed a bit too unprepared for sleep, yet quite calm, and soon grew thoughtful. There at my head was my dog, far across the bed my wife, sound asleep, and not for the first time I considered resolutely the circumstances that my dog and I had a more intimate relationship in bed than my wife and I. Remember, I noted that we have very different schedules. And now she was pressing that point with some of her more common sleep noises, something very much like a snore. That it occurred to me, in that it was in no way obnoxious or distracting, was perhaps the engine of her sleep, and the moaning noises were without drama of any kind. Why that perfectly effectless brainstorm and demi-poetic swell of observation should have led me to examine the character of my pet dog, I have no idea. But there you have it. Thank you for listening.